Okay, so I want to like start like the project. I gave you like the code. So you can add a class to your project just as a review. Click on the project folder, go to add, and then go to a new class, and then you can like add a new class to your project. Um, like name it correctly. Like it shouldn't include a class. Just like is it the account? Is it like a payment or anything? Is it just name the class correctly? I created an account as well as the program. Okay, so I've added the comments exactly from the like the problem description. Okay, so just use the like the comments that I had, added them to the program, and then based on those, like added some code here initially. So now I'm kind of like familiar with the program. Everyone has a balance. They can make withdrawals, they can make the like deposits, and then like you can like you need to check if they can make a withdrawals, and if so, they can like make the withdrawal, and then also they need to like you can like display information about the account. Okay. So when I'm creating the account, this time I know like every account has one characteristic, and that's the account balance. Okay. So I will declare this balance, and let me just balance. Okay. This is like the default constructor. Okay. Uh, I want to add one property. Okay. Why do we need to add a property? Because like the field, the account, the balance is specified as private. So we need to have like the property so that we can read the or get the current value or current account balance. So I want to define a property for the balance. Okay. So property like is a special type of method. So it's this for the name of the property, for the name of this method, we use the same name as the like the field. So balance. We don't add the parentheses, just like the curly brackets. And then I want to define the get and then say return balance. So when I call the property, I can get the like the balance value, like what is like in the account. Um, maybe the correct version is that we don't add stat here. I'm gonna add stat just because of the way that the description is added here, but maybe the correct version is not to add a set here. Why? It's because like you don't want to directly add a value to the account. Anything you're doing is kind of like if you're setting a value, like you're trying to like set a value to balance, basically you're making a deposit to the account. So by not adding a set here, you're limiting it to only for like using to make a deposit. If you add the set value, it makes it a little simpler to add like values to the account, and it wouldn't be a good idea in this case because you're dealing with bank accounts. But just in the case that we are working on, I will set like define the set side as well. Okay. So for the set side, I will say balance equals value. Okay. Now that said, I can also add like the behavior methods. Behavior methods is that what kind of like functions then you can apply or you can do with the account. With the account, you can do the deposits, you can do the withdrawals, right? So I want to define the methods. The methods should be named in like a verb noun thing because you're in performing a function. So I will like the one of the functions that you can apply to the account is like making a deposit. So I'll define, okay, the deposit. Um, and I want to define it as a double to return the balance. You could like define it like just maybe in a different way as well. So make deposit. Two functions. How do I find out? It said two functions can like be done on the account, at least for now. Make a deposit and make a withdrawal. So you want to do that inside the class itself. You want to create an op like a template that says, hey, every account has a balance, and with every account you can make a deposit and you can make a withdrawal. So I have two functions to implement into this class. One of them is make a deposit. In order to make a deposit, you need to know what is the amount. Amount is not part of this class. It's like how much money you want to like implement. And every time it will vary, right? So if it's varying, you want to like use it, like pass it as a parameter and not like declare it as a class field. You say, okay, let me know what is the amount that the user tries to like add to the account, and then I will add it. In that case, I would need to have that as like a parameter to say, I will define a parameter for the make a deposit and say the amount. If you give me the amount, then I will add it to the balance. Balance equal plus equal amount. And it's kind of a calculation like method. In the calculation methods, I'd rather to like just return the value, my view. So if it's a calculation, you're doing the calculation, and I would say, okay, I will like return the balance after doing the calculation. So like if you want to know what is the result of the calculation, you can use it, and like you will know it and you can use it for whatever reason you want. Maybe you won't need to use it anymore, but it's still, I want to like design my code in a way that after each calculation, you want to see the result of the calculation, or you want to get the result of the calculation.
Is there a reason why we didn't like initialize the amount in like the beginning, like a private double amount?
Oh, you're saying why we didn't like specify it as a class field, right? Why, like, so every, like, about the amount, this amount, like, varies, like, frequently. The point about the field is that, first of all, it's a characteristics of the account. Does the amount of the deposit and withdrawal is a characteristics of the account? It's, I would think that, like, maybe, like, only the balance is, like, characteristics of the account. And then the amount itself, at this point, seem to me like we can like use it as a variable if you want to like define it as a like the like a what is it the property. Oh, sorry, the class field. How are you going to like set the value to the property? You will need to define only like a, did you define a property for it?
Yeah.
Okay, I see, I see. I think that should also work, but there is no like okay. I use this one, maybe like yours as well works too. But maybe just having like an amount, and then you can think about it. I can't say it would be a like a great like the best way to implement it at this point. But I can think about it. I thought this would be a better version, but I can see your point and I can think about what is like maybe is it a good idea to actually add it as a like a field or not. But for now, we know the balance. Okay. So the same way for like we have another function to make a withdrawal. So I've also like defined a withdrawal, make withdrawal. And again, the same way, you get an amount and you make the withdrawal. I think a lot of you implemented the code with checking whether the user can make the withdrawal. I'd rather to separate this task. Every time, if there is a function, checking whether you can do the withdrawal, to me is kind of a separate function. Okay. So I'd rather have like the functions be very simple and do one single task. So in this case, I will only think that like if I like call this method, I will just do like the withdrawal, and that is minus equal to amount. And then again, return after the calculation, I wanted to return the result of the calculation. Okay. But we have also one more function here, which is we want to check, it says like you should check it for the withdrawals, you should check if the user can make the withdrawal. I will like do this in a different method. So that way it's like a one single like method to say, I want to create a method to return a true false. If the user is able to make that withdrawal or not. Yes, they can. No, they can't. So that means I will implement a Boolean, like a return type can be a Boolean, and then check, okay, withdrawal. Okay. You'll see it's much simpler, right? We separate them and say, okay, this is the amount. Can the user like make that withdrawal or not? So if I give them the amount, then I can say, okay, so let's say Boolean if like no, uh, let's say okay. Like, and name the like the Boolean or just like return like check the result here. So if the amount is less than, let's say less than or equal to balance, then like change the flag to true. Okay. That way you're specifying that like the user can make the withdrawal and then return that like answer. Okay. So that's the only thing because I like initially set it to false means that the user cannot. Only if they can like change it to true and then return, okay, return that like the result of this check. It's not part of the if, just remember. Okay. So you see, I separated this part, the checking it from making the withdrawal. That way I have like much clearer, like you see, I have the make a withdrawal and then check withdrawal. Instead of putting it to one like field, like one like method. Because like if the user cannot, if you use this like here, one of them would be like doing a calculation and returning like the value, other one would be like saying, no, you can't. This could like become a little bit challenging to implement it later. But having like separating the task makes like the code and the use of the code a little bit easier and like much more like clear. So last one, I want to also like add just like so I told you do not use console in the classes that you create so that like you create classes that are independent from the user interface. A lot of times you will have to like create some messages that are common. So just create the message in the class and return the message, return the string. And then depending on what is the user interface, whether it's a Windows application, console application, use like the code for the like the user interface and display that message. But the class itself only responsible for creating that message. So I will create one method that like creates a string and let's say like generate okay message. Right now like maybe like a better name you've come up with different name. And that is just like return the message that we want to like create that is common here. Let's say, the transaction was successful. If you want to create multiple like messages, the transaction was successful, or like let's say we are going to use this one to say the account, okay, the account balance is balance. Okay. So if you call this method, it will create this like message with the like the current like account balance and then return like that message. And then depending on what user interface you're using, you can like use the same class in Windows application or like any other different like user interfaces because there is no mention of the user interface. Here, we are implementing the code independent from the user interface. Okay. Okay. One more thing. Now that we've like implemented this code, I want to talk about like another constructor. Okay. First, this is the like the default constructor. But a lot of times you will need to like read the information. Already there is an account for the customer and like it say what is the account like amount or like balance currently. You read the information from the database and you want to start the like right away set up the object and start it. In that case, you can like you can based on that you can predict it and say, okay, I'm gonna add a constructor that when you call the constructor, you can initialize the object. Sorry, initialize the balance. Okay, so I will add one more constructor here. Constructor is like a special type of method, right? So the name of the constructor should be the same name as the class name. It doesn't have any return type. And you can only use it when you're creating and initializing the object. So I want to say you can use this constructor when, let's say, you already know like the account balance. Okay, you're like using the database and like you want to directly set it up. So I will say only use it to initialize the balance. How do I name it? I like this is my like method. I use the same name of the field name, but like add an underline to separate it to indicate that this is a parameter. Okay, it's not the field itself, it's the parameter. And then say balance equals to underline balance. Okay, so I use the constructor like to set the value to balance, and then again, yes.
Can you just explain that one more time, like what's it like a constructor?
So let's say like you've stored the information about the like the accounts and their balances in the database. And you're reading the information from the database, so you already know the balance amount. Okay. So you get the data and then you're creating the objects. So you want to right away set it up instead of like using the property to set the value. This way, like you're adding flexibility to the class. You're saying you can create objects from the class without initializing the balance. The first one that like allows you to do that. To create a like this constructor allows you to create an object from the class without initializing the balance. Okay, so the cases that you just created an account for the customer and the blank balance doesn't exist, you cannot use this constructor because you just created the account. Right? You go to the bank account, banking, like bank, and say, hey, I want to create an account. This is the same thing happening. You can like create an object like for the customer, create a customer account, and then you set the value for the account. That's one case. The other case is that no, the customer has an account in the system and you want to try to like you've stored it in the database, then you want to like connect to the database and read the information. In that case, the balance already exists, information is already in the database. So when you read that information, you want to directly store that information. So that's the difference here. Okay. One,
it already has the balance amount, you don't need to like type it in.
exactly. So you want to like add that flexibility whenever you like the data already exists. Like let's say it's a stored in a database and you start the program and you want to create these objects, you want to have this ability to like set the value to the field directly when you create the object. Great. Okay. Okay, so we are done with the class implementation. Okay, that's it. Let's now use the class. The first thing is create an object from the class. Okay, so we created the template for the accounts. So I will create one object from the class. Okay. In this case, you see, I have two options. I can create the object without initializing the account. It says you have two constructors. Or I can pass the information about the balance. Okay. So for now, I'll use like this version. Okay. For now, I'll use this version. I could have like exactly get the input and actually like pass the information as well. So both of them are correct. I'll show you at the end if you have time, both like the other version. So I will say account because for the balance, I created a property and property allows me to get and set a value to the balance. So I will say balance equals convert to double. So okay. So the first one was get the initial value of the account balance. So get the initial value. So we created an object from the class and it stored the information about the balance. Now, let's move on here. Okay. The first request is that if the user requests to have like to make a deposit, then you can make the deposit. So you need to get the deposit amount and then make the deposit, right? So again, remember, separate the input process output. So first I will get the input. So I want to create here a variable as an amount. Okay. So the amount is equal to convert to double. So read line. First, get the input. Now perform the process. What is the process? Is to say, I want to also add one thing that is like, I want to define this as like a balance here or current balance, because it's going to return like whenever we call it, we can get the current balance here as well. Okay, this is just a local variable. Okay. So balance equals to, okay, so which one was it? Account dot make deposit. Make deposit. And I need to pass the amount. So what will happen? The object, it will be added to the the amount will be added to the account, and then it will like return the balance. If it's confusing this part, like you can name this value differently. Maybe you can like just set it to result, okay? Result of the calculation. This is just a local variable because this method will return the result of the calculation. What is it adding to to the deposit? But there's still the object itself will carry that information throughout this program. At any time, it will give you the current value of the deposit. Okay. So we use like balance here. And then, so here input, now process, now the output. Okay. So now I can think about the output and say console, the right line. Okay. The object it knows the current account balance. Okay. I can also like use the method that I implemented into the class and say account and generate the message. This is why I said create a method that only creates the message and returns it. Then depending on what is the what is the user interface you're using, you can display that message. Okay, so here we are working with console, so this message will be displayed using console write line. If it was like a Windows application, we would use message box.show. Okay, but still the code is designed to be be independent from the user interface. So input, process, and then output. So we separate them and then implement this separately. Okay, any question? Okay, so the same way for the withdraw. So the same way here, we got the amount. Okay, I'm gonna use like the amount. It doesn't matter. We don't need like to create a new field. Okay, so get the amount from the user, and then I need to check if the user is able to withdraw. Okay, if the user is able to withdraw. So I will create first. I will create a variable like a boolean, like the same way as used. Just like I'll just use you know check right. Okay, I'll use the same name. Okay, false. So I want to use this field like the boolean to check, basically check the result of like that like whether the user is able to make the withdrawal or not. So set the initial value to false, then say okay, so flag equals to account dot I have a method to check withdrawal based on the amount. Okay. So first, let's check whether the person the person can do the withdrawal. If the answer is true, it will return true or false. And then you will store it in flat. And then you can check. Okay. If flag is equal to true, Okay, then again, say like, account dot make withdrawal with the amount. Okay, so this way you kind of like separated these two from each other. First, check whether the user can like do the withdrawal, and if so, make the withdrawal. Now, I can say console, okay, console.writeLine, then account dot generate message. Okay, make the withdrawal and then display the message. Otherwise, okay, else, again, you can also like indicate that the user is not able to, okay, the request was denied. Again, input, process, you do the process and then output. So separate this three from each other, and that would like implement it. Even like here, in this case, I could have implemented it just a little bit better. Okay, I could have like created like a variable here as a string output. Okay, to say just it will return a message, right? So what if I say output equals to account, okay, account.generate message. Otherwise, let me just remove this and say output equals this message. So get the output, like depending on which one is it, and then just at once, okay, just console that write line output. Great. That is it. Make sure to like you've submitted your like the code, which I will use also for attendance. And I will also like post this like the code after class. That's it. Have a good weekend. I'll see you on Monday to continue this class.